So I'm really excited to be here in that capacity and share this passion that we all have in this room, which is to ensure that our communities continue to thrive, because that's all what we want. And so with this session, we will be shining a spotlight on school meals. The focus of today's session is on the challenges and opportunities in sustainably financing these vital and transformational programs. Also a reminder that we are online, so greetings to our online community. I'm sure you're looking at us in real time. Please be sure to also share your thoughts as we continue with the discussion. And there's a request from the interpreters. They're asking that we can try and speak slowly. I don't know if I'm doing a good job at that already, but to try and pace it as much as possible so that they're able to translate in real time. So we'll try our best to do that. So once again, thank you all so much for being here. We're looking forward to an energizing discussion, a call to action, and continuing with our shared passion. And now, for our opening remarks, I'd like to welcome to the stage Dr. Martin Frigine, Director, Agriculture and Agro-Industry at the Africa Development Bank Group. We can give him a round of applause as he makes his way to the podium. Karibu sana.
Good morning, everybody. It's good to see His Excellency Professor Kikwete here this morning. So it's always a pleasure to see you. I worked in Tanzania when you were head of state there, and I work on a cassava program there. And I can tell you that you helped us succeed. Thank you very much again, sir. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. I'm here on behalf of my Vice President and Dr. Beth Dunford. She is not able to join us today, but she has asked me to send her warmest regards. And she has also told me to let you know what we're discussing this morning is of big importance to the bank for 3 reasons. The first reason is because freedom from hunger, as enshrined in SDG 2, is a human right, especially for kids. It's a human right. We cannot have children stunted, wasted, underweight, simply because they cannot get enough to eat. And school feeding is one way to ensure that they get all the food, all the basic nutrients they need every day. The second reason why it's very important to us is because the food that the children were going to eat are produced by farmers. So it's a market for farmers. I used to live in Latin America, and there's a saying there, the best fertilizer for a crop is a market. And I can tell you that a farmer having a secured market, it makes the difference between being able to pay school fees and being able to take care of your family. So the reason why we're so interested in this is because the provider of that food is the market. The third reason is human capacity development is the most important investment any country can make. And when you offer children a free meal, you can be sure they will stay in school. They will come back every time and again. They will come back to school. They'll come back to school just because. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced hunger. When I was growing up, I went to a missionary school in Nigeria. And even though they tried to feed us, I remember clearly I was always hungry. Always hungry. And for kids, being able to give them a balanced diet every day, it means the difference between development of gray matter or not development of gray matter. We are very happy to join this initiative. We also are discussing with others who are also very much involved in school feeding. We have the Children Investment Fund Foundation. They are talking to us to invest over $100 million into school feeding. We, because agriculture is the second corporate priority for the bank, we're also looking to invest another more than $100 million. With the Rockefeller Foundation investment, we're sure we can get to the target of $300 million. We're also very happy to let you know that our president has put a big emphasis on development of gray matter. He always says that infrastructure development is great, but gray matter development is probably the most important. With those few words, I will just give a few examples of where this is going, and then I'll stop. First of all, we intend to scale up our existing programs in Democratic Republic of Congo, Madagascar, Tanzania, and to mobilize resources for other African Union members. By 2030, we want every child on the continent to have access to a nutritious meal every day. And thereby we'll advance not just the bank's Feed Africa policy, but also advance the SDGs. We also believe very strongly that the End School Age Hunger Fund is an idea that the time has come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those opening remarks and for really humanizing the aspect of ensuring that our children do not go hungry. I think that's such a critical message that should resonate today. And now for our welcoming remarks, I would like to invite to the stage a leader who champions school meals here in Kenya. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Belhocine, Principal Secretary, State Department for Basic Education in the Ministry of Education, who will deliver the opening remarks on behalf of the Cabinet Secretary for Education. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much. I would want to take this opportunity to welcome all of us, Your Excellency Bwana Kikwete, the Chair of GP, the Commissioner for Education at the AU, all of us here in today. I would want to first, on behalf of the Minister for Education in Kenya, on behalf of the Kenyan government, to invite all of us to this very important meeting, to this very important engagement today, an engagement that is focusing on our children. Because when we focus on our children, then we are focusing on the future. So as we sit here today, we are sitting here today ensuring that we invest in the future. And the most important investment that anybody can do is that investment we are investing in the future, because you will be sure that there is something for everybody the next day. And what we are doing here in today and discussing about our children and the school feeding program, then we are affirming that we are good going forward. I would want, on behalf of all of us, on behalf of the Kenyan government, on behalf of the Ministry of Education, affirm the strategic importance of school meals program. That the school meals program all over, and here in Kenya in particular, is that it is a critical pull factor for children to be school. Other than that, it is also a critical factor that makes our children to remain in school. And more than that, again, it makes the learning outcomes of our children better than they would have been if there was no program to deal with school meals. As a country today, in the last 2 years, we have more than doubled the number of children who are on school feeding program. We were slightly above 1 million in 2022. Today, we are feeding 2.6 million children that they have a meal every day for every day that they are in school. The government has doubled resources to the school meals program and give commitment that going forward, this is one thing that as government we shall continue to make sure that we take care of our children by making sure that they are in school. As we deal with school meals, I think it's also important the environment in which these meals are done, and therefore the essence of going into ways in which we ensure that one, we use clean energy, two, we go to other ways in which we can be able to mobilize resources, because there is no government that will be able to deal with universal school feeding unless we are able to work and engage with our strategic partners. So once again, I would want not to say much. I know there will be a panel to be able to deal with so many of the issues that we need to deal with. So today mine was to welcome all of us to this meeting. Once again, karibuni Kenya. Asante sana.
Thank you very much, Dr. Belhocine, who may not remember, but years ago, he was also championing the menstrual hygiene conversation And tomorrow is Menstrual Hygiene Day. It's something that's very close to me, but he's been an ally and a champion for many, many years. So thank you for that. And now I have the honor to welcome to the stage His Excellency, Dr. Jakaya Kikwete, former President of the United Republic of Tanzania and Board Chair of the Global Partnership for Education, to deliver the keynote speech. Can you please give him a round of applause?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Moderator, who is also a GAPE champion. Dr. Martin, Professor Mohamed, Belhocine, am I pronouncing it correctly? The AU Commissioner for Education, Science and Technology and Innovation, Dr. Belio Kipsang, our host, the Principal Secretary, State Department for Basic Education and the Ministry of Education, the Republic of Kenya, development partners present, regional education leaders, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Global Partnership for Education, of which I am the chair of the board, I sincerely thank the organizers for the invitation and for associating our organization with these important discussions on creating fiscal space for school meals, which is part of a broader discussion on African Union's Agenda 2063, the famous phrase we use is Africa we want, the SDGs and the human capital development in Africa. You'll agree with me that many of our economies on the continent are still reeling from the devastating effects of prolonged drought, COVID-19 pandemic, and most recently, unprecedented floods. They have devastated, they have exposed our vulnerability in an unprecedented manner. Apart from causing loss of livelihoods, the economic downturn has exacerbated the food security situation across our dear continent. Regrettably, the effects of these calamities weigh most heavily on the most vulnerable populations in our communities. This is our lovely children. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this is concerning because in Africa, at least 216 million children already suffer from stunting and wasting. Malnutrition continues to be one of the greatest challenges facing human development in Africa, causing stunting, growth and development, causing high risk of illness and even death from common infections. Malnutrition is responsible for reduced school participation and poor achievements for our children. If we are to achieve our goals set out in Agenda 2063 of the Africa we want, and truly deliver on Africa's immense promise, it is imperative that we must do whatever is necessary to harness our demographic dividend, that is, our children and our young people. What does this mean? It means we must consider all aspects of children's lives, their health, their nutrition, their well-being, and their safety, as these are crucial for developing the foundational skills and learning they need for life. It empowers, if empowered with appropriate foundational skills, Africa's children and young people hold the key to the continent's success now and in future. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we need to invest in transforming education systems. A key part of this endeavor is to ensure that no child goes to school hungry. It enhances if a child goes to school with a full stomach. It enhances our children's learning ability with good outcomes. Good outcomes for the children and for our nations. The World Food Programme estimates that every dollar invested in school feeding can result in a $9 return, making it an economic and human development opportunity that we cannot ignore. It has also been demonstrated that school meals are an effective way to increase enrollment and learning outcomes in this promising continent of ours. It goes a long way also towards reducing gender disparity. It is encouraging to note that despite demands of post-pandemic or tightening of the fiscal space, low-income countries have increased domestic funding for school meals from approximately 30% in 2020 to 45% in 2022. This leaves us with a challenge. How do we fund school meals sustainably? We definitely need new innovative ways to finance school meals and transform education and food systems to deliver school meals for our children. This means also that we not only need new and innovative ways of financing school meals, but also the transformation of education and food systems that deliver school meals to our young people. I believe this is why we are here. The African Development Bank's annual meetings to discuss Africa's transformation and how to reform the global financial architecture. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed participant partners, in cognizance of this challenge, the Global Partnership for Education continues to work with our partners on innovative approaches to financing school feeding programs. Debt swap for education is one of those tools we see as possible means. For example, through debt swap between Ivory Coast or Cote d'Ivoire and France, funding was specifically allocated to school meals. GP has been part of these France, Cote d'Ivoire discussions and negotiations on debt swap. But it's specific. That a country is indebted. This country talks to a partner. That's what we want. Talks to a partner country. I owe you so many dollars or euros. Let's negotiate. Let's talk about debt forgiveness, but on condition that I'm going to spend that money on education. That's what we call debt to education, D2D, D2E. We've been encouraging that. We have succeeded with Cote d'Ivoire and France. We believe if countries take that initiative, like what the government of Cote d'Ivoire has done with the government of France, we would be able to get there. We would be able to increase financing. I think education financing in Cote d'Ivoire through this program is about $220 million. And of course, with the GPU multiplier, for every $3, GP contributes that country $1. So it was 72 million at the beginning, 3 to 1. GP contributed 24 million, which made it $96 million for. So it's one of those things that we really encourage, because we believe that. That is why since 2016, of course, GPE has provided 95 million in grants to support governments in this school feeding program. Furthermore, we are proud to be partners of the School Meals Coalition, and we are committed to scaling up access to school meals programs for millions of children in Africa and beyond. Here in Kenya, our School Nutrition Technical Assistance Initiative aims to reinforce national capacity on school. Like to go to school.
Eh bien, il l'obtiendra à l'école. Et à ce moment-là, ils sont incités à se rendre dans une école. Et parfois, vous savez, c'est le seul repas
So if it is the only meal,
pendant cette journée. Et si c'est le cas,
he or she will be the first one to wake up
il ou elle sera
before 6 a.m.,
le premier ou la première à se lever avant 6 heures du matin,
wash, dress up,
se laver, s'habiller
and ready to go to school.
et courir vers l'école.
But if this boy is hungry,
Mais
this
si cet
girl is
enfant
hungry,
a faim,
parents will have a lot of
eh
problems
bien, les
waking
parents
up
ont beaucoup
this
de
child to
mal
go
à
to school.
réveiller cet enfant pour
Because at
l'inciter
school,
à se rendre à l'école.
She's as if she's not there.
Parce que cette
So
école,
that's why
en fait,
we
n'existe pas
GP
pour cet
factor
enfant.
School feeding program is a critical
Et donc ce facteur
component
de
of
programme
development
d'alimentation
of our
scolaire
partnership
est un facteur
with
important
countries
pour le
that work
développement
with
avec
us.
nos partenariats
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a
des
great
pays qui
fact.
travaillent avec nous. Mesdames et messieurs, je me réjouis de voir qu'il y a une énergie collective dans cette
The
salle
power of school meals program.
et comprendre l'importance de ces
Ladies
programmes
and gentlemen,
d'alimentation.
with those many words, I thank you for your time and partnership. Let's work together to advance this important program for the education of our kids. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those words, Honorable Jakaya Kikwete. And alongside the welcome and opening remarks, I feel like we're really all being called to collectively take action. But now we want to unpack that in a panel. How can we achieve sustainable school feeding programs? It is my pleasure to welcome to the stage my panelists. And please note you'll be sitting from the second chair on. And the first panelist that I would like to welcome is His Excellency, Professor Mohamed Belhocine, AU Commissioner for Education, Science, Technology, and Innovation. Welcome to the stage. As he makes his way to the stage, I'd also like to welcome Mr. Harun Yussuf, CEO of the National Council for Nomadic Education in Kenya. Ms. Betty Kibaara, Response Director of Food Initiative, the Rockefeller Foundation. And finally, Ms. Carmen Burbano, Response Director, School Meals and Social Protection Service at the World Food Programme. Thank you all so much for joining me on the panel and for being here today. I would like to begin. You can tell I was a journalist, right? Papers, clipboards, pens, and a phone, just to make sure that we have the right context for this conversation. We'll begin with Your Excellency, Professor Mohamed Belhocine. The African continent has been among the most vocal champions generating the current global momentum around school meals. I'll be setting context for each of the questions because it's important that we set the context for the same. The African Union Commission has generated compelling evidence to support its member states to improve the coverage and quality of these programs. Could you tell us about the financing challenges and opportunities African countries face in their efforts to expand coverage and improve the quality of their school meal programs?
Thank you. Excellency President Jakaya Kikwete, my former president, since I worked when he was president in Tanzania, I was the WHO rep in the same country, and now partner under GPE. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, all protocols duly observed. I would like to thank first the African Development Bank with its partners for giving us this opportunity to reflect on this very important topic that lies at the intersection of education, health, nutrition, and social welfare, which is school meals financing. When we talk about school meals financing, we are talking about more than just numbers in a budget sheet. We are talking about investing in the well-being of our children, as very well emphasized by His Excellency President Jakaya, in their ability to learn, to grow, and thrive, nourishing young minds, empowering communities, and investing in future of our societies. It reflects our commitment to ensuring that no child is left behind, no child goes hungry, and no child is denied the opportunity to reach their full potential. As you are aware, the African Union designated 2024 as the Year of Education under the theme, Educate an African Fit for the 21st Century. Outcome 9 of the roadmap designed for activities to support this theme of the year focuses on the establishment and strengthening multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder partnerships for education. And outcome 10 focuses on strengthening resource mobilization for increased sustainable financing and systematic investment in education. We believe that these two contribute to outcome 6, which focuses on the accelerated creation of a healthy and conducive learning environment for improved learning outcomes through strengthening homegrown school feeding, peace, education, and health education. As I said, school feeding is at the crossroads of different elements of the development. One of the most important challenges that education systems face in our continent is, so there are many challenges. Obviously, you know them all. I'm not going to go through all of them. We have 100 million children out of school, for instance, and this is a big challenge. We have different other challenges, learning poverty, meaning that children at age of 10 are not capable of reading a simple text. But the most important challenge that we have is a structural deficit, financial deficit, which is not directly linked to the political will of our governments. Why? Because we have a demographic burden. It is, of course, we call it demographic dividend, but when you have to educate 500 million children, it is more difficult than when you have to educate 100 million children, obviously. And even the most politically committed and voluntarist government may find themselves with their budget not enough to cover universal education coverage in the country. So this is, I think, the most important, because you are talking about challenges. I will stop with this one only. I will not go. There are other challenges. Now, it is against this background of our outcomes in the roadmap that we note the diverse and the varied mechanisms that support school meals programs, some of which were already mentioned by His Excellency President Jakaya. First, we have, of course, national budget allocation. It is very important because it demonstrates the government's prioritization of child nutrition. And data compiled with the WFP and the African Union in March 2023 shows that homegrown school feeding programs have reached 66 million children in 54 African countries. And the good news about this is 84% of the budget to cover these activities is national government budget. This means that there is really a political will, and this is thanks to our collective efforts to advocate for school meals. Second, we have NGOs. They are not everywhere because there are many NGOs, and sometimes they are working in 1, 2, 3, 10 countries, depending on which NGO we are talking about and what they are doing. But they bring in specialized expertise. They bring in resources, and every funding source playing a vital role in ensuring the success and sustainability of these programs, their presence is very important. We have international donor support, which has been instrumental in bridging funding gaps and expanding the reach of school feeding initiatives to reach more children in need. We have public-private partnerships, which we always talk about. And this has emerged as innovative models for financing school feeding programs. By leveraging resources and expertise of both sectors, these partnerships can unlock new opportunities for collaboration, efficiency, and impact, whether it is through corporate social responsibility, and I shall give some examples on this later, or joint ventures with private sector companies. These partnerships demonstrate the power of combining forces to achieve a common goal. And I think we are not really taking enough, we have not, the public-private partnership has still a long way to go in our continent because there are so many lost opportunities in this area. For example, we have MTN in South Africa. You all know MTN, the telephone company, contributes to school feeding as part of their corporate social responsibility efforts. And Nigeria, for instance, the government collaborates with the Dangote group in funding school meals. We have bilateral and tri-party debt swaps, given member states' indebtedness to various lenders. This is worth exploring. We got the example of Côte d'Ivoire that the President mentioned. There are other examples. For instance, Italy-Egypt debt swap for the tune of 15 million US dollars. It's a 5-year project which provides children with daily nutritious snacks at school that helped increase concentration level and provided 25% of daily nutritional needs. So this is a way, maybe getting a little bit long, but the examples are very important. We have also Russia-Mozambique World Food Program debt swap in 2017 to the tune of 40 million US dollars. Okay. We have social impact bonds, which can offer a sustainable and outcomes-focused financing mechanism that leverages private investment, expertise, and government commitment to improve the nutritional status and educational outcomes for students. It provides a structured framework for innovation, efficiency, and effectiveness in delivering essential services to vulnerable populations and creating a positive social impact that benefit both individuals and society.
Okay.
There are two other examples. I have to give you the whole list because that's your question.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I tried to make it very short, but the list is long.
Just in the interest of time,
yes,
if you can.
No problem. We have stemming illicit financial flows. Reports indicate that the continent loses between 500 and 600 billion US dollars yearly through illicit financial flows, public spending inefficiencies, tax redundancies, and missed opportunities to mobilize national financial flows. If we were to stem at least 20% of these losses and invest in school meals, the estimated returns would be between 90 and 120 billion US dollars channeled through towards human capital development. And lastly, as we reflect on the importance of school meals, we have to also count on communities that come together to support these programs. It is very important. And we have examples from Ghana, for instance, or from East Africa, in Arusha, where the parents commit to donate 10 kilograms beans and 30 kilograms maize from their homegrown farms per child and per year to the schools. This spirit of collaboration and solidarity is what sustains these efforts and propels them forward. It is a reminder that when we work together, we can achieve great things and create a brighter future for all. Let me conclude by saying that at the heart of school meals financing are the children we serve, the bright-eyed students who walk through the school gates each day, eager to learn, play, and grow. They are the reason why we must continue to advocate for adequate and sustainable school meals financing, indeed, but more globally, education financing through different mechanisms. They are the ones, these kids are the ones who stand to benefit the most from our collective efforts to ensure that no child's education is hindered by hunger or malnutrition. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Very comprehensive, tangible examples with data. We do want to give everyone an opportunity to share their thoughts, just in the interest of time. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Mr. Harun Yussuf, CEO of Kenya's National Council for Nomadic Education in Kenya. Kenya has set an ambitious target of achieving universal coverage by 2030, ensuring that all primary school learners have access to a nutritious meal. Could you tell us a little bit more about how the government of Kenya plans to sustainably finance the program going to 2030, including one or two examples of innovative financing mechanisms already in place or perhaps under consideration? You can please share your microphone.
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. The sessional the moderator. Maybe, Paul, I would like to take this opportunity to thank very sincerely the World Food Program and the organizers of this event, the Rockefeller Foundation, for giving me this opportunity to possibly present at this particular level. Thank you very much again to bring in this pet subject of creating physical space for school meals. This is something very close to our hearts as a country and as a Ministry of Education. As you may know very well that the government of Kenya is a leader already in the school feeding program in the African space, a program that started well in the year 1980, and that we're already in this program for over 4 decades as of now. And as a government, as you've rightly mentioned, and we have already expanded the allocation of the feeding resources from 2 billion in the year 2022 to close to 6 billion in 2023. And the numbers have moved exponentially from 1 million to 2.6 as of now. Kenya is also firmly committed to the Global School Meal Coalition, an indication that the fact that it has allocated its own resources, which is fully government-led, is an indication that we are committed to the universal school feeding, and that we are now targeting 10 million children by the year 2030, with an interim figure of 4 million, ambitious 4 million by the end of 2024. As you are aware, that already the country is experiencing a constrained fiscal space, and as my PS has put it aptly, there's no government that can be able to finance 10 million children on its own. But with the support of our very important partners at the World Food Program, the Rockefeller Foundation, the GPE, through the World Bank, we have been able to put our heads together, and we have now documented a very important innovative approach in ensuring that school feeding is sustainably financed. If I take you back also very briefly, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable William Samoei Ruto, has made major strides in advocating for reforms of the financial architecture, more so within the space of Article 6, provision of Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, where he intends to take us to a new environment where funding can be secured through the finance, through the climate finance. To achieve this, a very strong team of the Rockefeller Foundation, the World Food Program, have come together and put in place a very strong strategy for the scale-up plan. The scale-up plan has already been put in place with support of our partners, and indeed we were to actually, very soon, we will be able to bring to the fore the document, the strategy informing this. So coming to the carbon finance, the strategy is innovative. We intend to transition, because as you mobilize more resources to feed the children, there's also the consequence on the environment. You mobilize for more money. 90% of our schools in Kenya, and also even in sub-Saharan Africa, are dependent on the biomass fossil fuel as a source of energy. That has a consequence on the environment. So Kenya as a country now is innovatively thinking of transitioning to a very innovative strategy of mass clean cooking using steam. And with the steam cooking, we'll be able to achieve 3 things immediately. Number one, the energy source that we'll be using will be one that will be friendly to the environment and ensure nature-based solution is protected, and that there's no more going to the forest to bring down more fuel wood to cook food. Number two, the steam cooking will also ensure that because of the efficiency of the cooking, 75% efficiency, we'll be able to have 75 to 80% emission reduction at the kitchen level, which is also going to be very healthy for the cooks, and it will also be able to give them more time to do a number of other things. And number three, the steam cooking will also give us results, will be strong on 100% removals, meaning that the earth-filled food waste that was causing methane gas will also be reduced. So as a country, we have taken already, we have moved with our partners. The World Bank, through the GP through the World Bank has already given us the resources to actually pilot for 5 schools in the rural areas. In Kenya, we have divided the entire country into two cohorts. A cohort of urban informal settlements that will be carrying about 5.5 million children. They'll be supported by about 183 centralized kitchen with a capacity of 30,000 learners. That will actually accommodate 5.5 million learners at one go. And for the rural schools, mainly most of the arid and the very arid regions, we will have 4.5 million children attended to through 9,020 kitchens. So these kitchens, once constructed, will become the first of its kind carbon asset infrastructure in Kenya. And they will be used now to generate steam resources. That will be capable of helping us doing the same. So as we speak, WFP and has actually mobilized Novo Nordisk. They have also mobilized the World Food Program. They mobilized the OPEC fund. And they're giving us the first 22 kitchens to be funded under this particular program, and the arrangements at the advanced stage. I mentioned the World Food Program, the GPE through the World Bank, and also Rockefeller Foundation is also providing support for technical assistance in ensuring that that is achieved. So it's my belief that by the year 2027, we'll be able to mobilize the much needed resources of 55 million Kenya shillings, which is about 412 million USD to finance upon this. Other partners that are also very important, and we're talking very closely, include the Gulf Organization for Research and Development, an entity that was actually formed after COP29. And their main business is basically in the carbon asset and space. So this is the innovation that is in place. I'm very grateful to our partners, World Food Program, Rockefeller Foundation, the World Bank through the GPE, in ensuring that this is going to be achieved. Other strategies also include, and already that's what has already been mentioned, but we're also looking at sin tax. More so, a tax regime that will be focusing on junk food that is unhealthy and is likely to affect the health of our children and the society, may also be taxed. And we've got a team that has come together through the Rockefeller Foundation to see to it that also materializes. We're also looking at a policy shift that's also going to engage parental contribution in the school feeding space. So our innovative strategies are robust, and with the support of our partners, we are sure by the end of this year, we'll be able to target 4 million children.
Thank you. And
come 2027, before His Excellency faces the next election, we will have 10 million and clearly mapped out with a clear strategy on how to feed them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. As just before we proceed, maybe just to mind the speakers, if we do need to wear our headsets for translation, that would be helpful. The audio coming from the speaker onto the stage is a little bit distracting. That's just a disclaimer to those who are controlling the sound, but in the meantime, we'll proceed. So please, let's mind that, perhaps. It's important that we do have translation. There are headsets just to ensure that it doesn't necessarily disrupt the panel session. So please make sure you have your headsets if you need the translation. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Harun Yussuf. And I'm ambitious target there of 10 million students. And in between, as you were speaking, you talked about the resourcing, which I think is something that we're hearing come up a lot, the sustainability. And perhaps this is now where we can go to the catalyzing force of philanthropy, as some might put it. We're now turning to the Rockefeller Foundation, a key partner supporting the government of Kenya's journey towards universal coverage. And so, Betty, the Rockefeller Foundation has been supporting African government efforts in expanding and improving the quality of school meal programs. During this time, the foundation has identified limited fiscal space as a key factor, something that has come up on the panel, as a key factor in hindering government's ability to scale up and enhance these programs. Could you please tell us a little bit more about Rockefeller's support to governments in improving the financial sustainability of school meal programs on the continent?
Thanks. Oh. Hello?
Yes, I think it's on.
You can hear me?
Yes.
All right. I want first, before I answer your question, I want to tell my story because, of course, today we've heard a lot about the importance of school feeding programs, what it's able to do to the education outcomes for children and the socioeconomic development. The person that you see here, oh, all right. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Is it better?
Yes, you can just be a bit audible. Oh, there was your Maybe you can just try speak audibly. If not, we can use the other microphone. Okay, let's try that.
Is that better?
Yes.
All right. Yes. Okay, so I wanted to first say that I'm actually, the person you see here today, I'm a beneficiary of a school feeding program. And this was a program which ran earlier in the years when we had our late President Moy. And it was actually called the Nyayo School Milk Program. Your Excellency, I didn't have a chance of getting a meal, but we got the milk. And that milk, I can tell you, it felt in my stomach like it was actually real food in the stomach. And that really kept me in school, and many of other learners who grew up at that time in Kenya. But the other thing that the school milk was able to do is the fact that the dairy sector was also able to become more structured. And because of that, if you look at the dairy sector today in Kenya, it's actually worth about $2 billion. And it's really fronted as one of the most successful sectors in Kenya. So school mills have really the ability to transform and also build capacity and build brains better so that you can have a better future generation. So that said, the Rockefeller Foundation, we've been mentioned here very many times. We have a very big ambition of increasing and catalyzing system transformation in food system, and especially around the school feeding program, where we have an ambition of catalyzing about 100 million learners to have access to food in school, and in ways which are planetary friendly and also sustainably. And I want to also raise the issue, beyond the numbers, this 100 million we are talking about, additional 100 million learners that we are looking forward to. I want to raise the issue of quality, because it's not just about the numbers, it's also about the quality of the food. And so one of the things that the Rockefeller Foundation has been doing in the last 2 years is improving the quality of the foods that the children are eating so that they're not eating foods which are highly processed. So we've transitioned maybe about almost 500,000 children in Africa to fortified whole grain, which is 5 times more nutritious. We've also supported, for example, other nutritious products like the biofortified beans. And we are now even expanding to others like pelagic fish, or what we call omena for school feeding programs. So it's not about just quantity, but there is also an aspect of quality that as we're expanding the school feeding programs, we need to really make sure that we are supporting. Now, to come to your question, there has been a lot of conversation around financing, so I'll not go into what was already talked about, especially the debt swaps. But I want to pick from perhaps where Harun stopped. As the Rockefeller Foundation, while all these other financing options are viable options, including debt swaps and including all the other instruments, concessional financing have been mentioned. I think from where we sit at the Rockefeller Foundation, what Harun talked about, the syntax, I think feels to us like it's one place where government should begin to explore how they can build a case and develop taxes that are going to support school feeding programs. And I want to give maybe 3 or 4 examples. So the first example, we have Ghana. Ghana last year, they imposed a tax, a 20% tax on sugar-sweetened beverages. And they have been able to, I think it's about 20%, and they have been able to raise about $100 million. While we are not saying here that all that money has gone towards school feeding programs, you can imagine, on average, it costs about $41 per child per year. That's how much governments spend on average to feed the children. So if you do a very quick calculation, you can see from 100 million, you can actually feed more than 2 million learners. So there are potential for us to tap into revenue resources. The second example I would give is from Bolivia. Bolivia has transitioned to 100% universal school feeding programs. And 70% of their budget is actually funded through what they call the hydrocarbon tax. So it is possible. And I'll give another example of Guatemala. Out of their VAT percent, they designate about 0.8% of their VAT tax towards school feeding programs. I understand even India has another tax, which is an education tax that is also partly used to fund their education programs. So as we think about all the other instruments, I think the one which we feel like many African governments are not really, have not advanced on is the earmark taxes. So what is the Rockefeller Foundation doing? We have what we call the 17 SDG rooms, which is a partnership between the Rockefeller Foundation and Brookings Institute in the US. And we use that platform, it's called the 17 SDG rooms, to dissect the 17 SDGs and develop a roadmap and pipeline for making a difference. And in this year's SDG room, the Rockefeller Foundation is going to be working with a consortium of partners to focus on earmarked taxes on SDG rooms and especially for school feeding programs. And we believe that the outcome from that exercise is going to also be an input into this discussion of financing. And then we have also partnered with the Sustainable Financing Initiative. I believe Carmen is going to speak a little bit about that. And what Sustainable Financing Initiative is doing, which is an initiative within the Global Mills Coalition, they are working with a number of countries to help the countries look at different financing options. These are countries like Rwanda, we have Burundi, we have Kenya, and Ghana, and I know that publication is going to be released very soon. The other thing we are doing, and I think just building off from what Harun talked about, the foundation for all those countries that have already made a commitment through the Global Mills Coalition to expand their school feeding programs. We are supporting those countries to make a business case, an investment case. Of course, sometimes you make a commitment, but maybe the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Education are not very well aligned. And that's kind of the support that we have given to Kenya, that helping Kenya as a country to create a roadmap for increasing investment in school feeding programs, 10 million. And this is just a good example of what the Rockefeller Foundation will be doing going forward. We will be launching what we are calling a big bet for school feeding program in partnership with WFP, GP, Nova Nordisk Foundation, IDRC, and other partners to do this scale up. And before I finish, I want to also say something around the opportunities. We also see opportunities for tapping into the carbon markets. Example of what Harun has actually talked about. The foundation is also focusing on e-cooking. And here, e-cooking, I mean cooking with electricity and also tapping into the solar solution. And we have, for example, WFP has created some, they have already done a lot of work in Tanzania. I think they will be setting up what they're calling the kitchen in a box to really see how they can tap into e-cooking. And we're also working with the Kenyan government, supporting the Kenyan government, which is developing its strategy on e-cooking, to make sure that they don't leave out the institutional cooking. And then finally, I want also to say that I am also inspired by models that also have a co-contribution factor. For example, if you look at Food for Education, which is giving food to more than 300,000 children in Kenya. They not only have their contribution or even the government contribution through the additional county program, but they also have the parents. So I think where it is possible for the parents and the communities to contribute, I think we should really encourage that also kind of the source of funding for the school feeding. So as I finish, I like to always share a proverb. There is a proverb that says that you cannot tell a hungry child that you gave them food yesterday. I think we owe it to this generation. We have to feed our children today. Thank you.
Thank you. Truly inspiring, and for sharing your own story. I think it just sets an example of the power of really being there for our children. And now you're a leader, so it really kind of births this hope for the future. So thank you so much for sharing your insights. Carmen, we've heard everything. We've heard the data. We've heard about some of the gaps. We've heard about some of the challenges. And so as we move to speaking to you from the World Food Programme, we're witnessing a global trend, right, including in Africa, of countries increasing domestic funding for their school meal programs, something that we've heard quite a bit today. Now, as the School Meals Coalition Secretariat Director, could you elaborate on the support that the coalition is providing to countries to identify financing mechanisms that could support them to make their programs sustainable?
Thank you so much, and thank you to the organizers, to AFDB for having us here, GPE, Rockefeller Foundation. I salute Commissioner Belhocine as well, the government of Kenya for their leadership. President Kikwete, you're always such an inspiration to all of us with your leadership. I want to maybe stop and just reflect on what we've just heard from the panel, because what we've been talking about here is creating fiscal space. Really, where does the money come from to feed all these children? These programs are not cheap. I mean, it isn't a small thing. $40, $50 a year is sometimes comparable to a lot of the budgets that the education sector have in general to educate their children. So we're not talking about programs and decisions that are very easy for governments and for presidents to make. But what we're seeing, and I represent right now the School Meals Coalition, is 97 countries that have come together to say, actually, this is one of our priorities. And 97 presidents in many cases that are saying, we really want to figure this out. So one thing that's important is that this isn't just an African conversation, a low-income country conversation about how do we support these children in these countries. This is a global conversation. When we go to France, the French government is figuring out how are we going to feed our children. The same conversation is happening in the US, in Finland, in most of Europe. So one of the things that I'm always struck by when we talk about why governments are saying this, why are they doing this, goes much beyond feeding children in school. And of course, we've heard about the importance for the children themselves to be fed. So that's obviously one of the reasons why governments do this, and because it's a crucial investment and input to the education system and how we are educating our children. But that's not the whole story. The reason why governments for now 200 years are investing in these programs is because they are good economic growth programs. Because they support supply chains, they give jobs at local level, they have really important health and nutrition benefits that go beyond just the child in school, but intergenerational benefits. And so what we're talking about here is programs that are foundational for the economy of countries. This is what the US used to jumpstart their economy in the early 1900s. The National School Meals Program came out of an agricultural decision to create markets for agricultural products for the US, and still to this day comes from an agricultural budget. So that's the motivation from the US to sustain their program. In Europe, if you talk to many European leaders, what they talk about is the putting in place of school meals programs after the Second World War as a way to jumpstart their economies, get their children back to school after a devastated continent after the Second World War. So these are decisions that are not just education sector decisions. These are presidential decisions that have to do with the future economy of a country, the industrial policy of a country, and what it takes to really get a country out of a circular downward spiral into a virtuous cycle. Because as we've heard, and I think Commissioner Belhocine highlighted this, these are platforms that touch upon education systems, food systems, job creation, nutrition, social protection and safety nets for this continent particularly as well, the issue of migration, stabilization of communities and trust in the state. I mean, these are programs that countries, for example, in West Africa, what we're hearing is that these are one of the most important strategies to prevent destabilization locally and armed actors from incursioning into territories. So these are very, very important investments that governments are making in the face of very tough choices. So that's one thing that I hope the audience leaves today thinking about. It isn't just about a nice to have. And it isn't about just a plate of food in front of children. These are really important motors of economic development in countries, and that's, I think, how we need to see it in the context of fiscal challenges in the future, which is why I think the African Development Bank is here. I think this is why the World Bank is at the discussion. This is why GPE is here, why the Rockefeller Foundation is here. It's because of the multiple benefits of the program that we're looking at this from that perspective. And if we look at it from that perspective, that's why taxes make sense. That's why debt swaps make sense. That's why innovative finance makes sense, because it's about how do we make the fiscal space available for the returns that are really making sense. Now, you asked me about the School Meals Coalition and what it's doing. The School Meals Coalition is built specifically around political will. It's about how many countries, and particularly heads of state, are making this a priority. And in the continent, you are very much in the lead. We have President Ruto, and as we've seen, the Kenya example is one of the leading examples of creativity in the continent, but President Kagame is also leading. We have President Talon in Benin, now reaching 75% of the children in the country. 2 years ago, they were just feeding about 30% of the kids. So these are huge investments that governments are making. President Macky Sall, also a huge leader in the continent of how to really advance through debt swaps, through conversations with the banks, through concessional financing, a mix of taxes and other really creative instruments, including climate financing, which we're hearing from Kenya as a really important model. So what the coalition is doing is basically saying, where do we have leaders that are really committed to this topic? How ambitious are they being? And in the Kenya case, for example, we know that the overarching goal is to feed 10 million kids. There's nothing more, I think, inspiring than having a head of state saying, this is what we want to do, and here's what we're willing to put on the table, including domestic financing. So from the coalition side, our job is to bring in other partners to help these heads of state do their job and achieve their goals. And what we've heard here today, for example, what's happening in Kenya. You have the World Food Program, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Global Partnership on Education, IFDB. We have other foundations that are coming, including Novo Nordisk. All of those partners, OPEC Fund was also mentioned, all of those partners crowding in to support a strong leadership from a government. Because what we don't want to see is donor-supported dynamics. What we don't want to see is more funding that's just going to a bottomless pit that is donor-driven. What we want to see is, and what we're elevating, is countries where we have strong leadership from the presidential side, and then figuring out the solutions. So Betty mentioned the Sustainable Financing Initiative. That is one of the most important pivotal initiatives of the coalition, because we realized that it's not enough to make those commitments, right? You have a president like President Ruto saying, okay, this is what we want to do, but we need help. We need help figuring this out for the long term. We need help with plans. We need help really thinking this through with partners. So the Sustainable Financing Initiative is doing a couple of things. With those commitments that we've seen from governments, how do we cost them out? How much are these commitments going to cost? How much is it going to cost Kenya to feed 10 million children? And then the second thing is, where's that money going to come from? Now and in the future. How can we help ministries of finance? This is something that we haven't discussed here today, but the Minister of Finance is a crucial part of this conversation. How are they looking at this, and how are they putting in place financing strategies? So the Sustainable Financing Initiative is helping with that, and then with the dialogue that is inevitably needed for those strategies to be put in place, to be monitored and improved upon. So our goal, I think, with the School Meals Coalition and with the partners that you've seen here today, is to back the commitments that we're seeing, particularly in the case of Kenya today. How do we support leaders like President Ruto to really make this a reality? Because the future of Africa depends on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for tying it all together, and I think it gives us a lot to think about. I feel like this was a very sort of like holistic approach to thinking through how we sustain school programs. And so I'd like to thank you all for your thoughts and your insights. And I think, again, I've said this from the beginning, this is really a very collective call to action as to how we address this, and from the highest level in each country. And so thank you very much. Let's appreciate our panelists once again. I'd like to actually ask you to remain. We just have one more remark that we're going to hear as we wind up. Now, we've heard about the plans, the data, the financing, innovation, really incredible innovation. But let's now also hear from somebody who is really a part of the future. She is a champion for the GPE Youth. She's a GPE Youth champion. And I'd like to ask her to come on stage and talk a little bit about that. She's called Valentine Chepkoech, so you can make your way to the podium and give us your remarks. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Thank you so much. Your Excellency, Dr. Jakaya Kikwete, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, no matter how much the world invests in textbooks, internet, teachers, if kids are hungry, then there is no investment we are making. If we want to educate an African fit for the 21st century, we cannot make it if we still have kids that are hungry. My name is Valentine Chepkoech Mugun. I'm a GPE youth leader, and I'm so humbled today to stand before you, to stand with our mentors, the people that have come before me. This is indeed true, meaningful youth engagement. Growing up in the beautiful countryside of Kericho County in Kenya, I witnessed how much a simple meal meant for students. Those students that were able to afford food easily just went on with their education systems. But unfortunately, I have friends who even dropped out of school because they were not able to access food. Food, the lack of food, has even caused gender disparities. I work with a CBO in Kericho that works to help teenage mothers get back to school. And when we look at the root cause of teenage pregnancy, it is so sad that it even boils down to food. Girls are lured even with the promise of just a mandazi or cake in Kenya, and young girls fall pregnant, and the vicious cycle of poverty continues. It is so, so sad, and it goes ahead to tell you how much lack of food really affects everyone here. So as we think about this, I'd like to celebrate a remarkable young Kenyan lady by the name of Wira Njiru, who is running a program known as Food for Education and really helping solve the urban food insecurity, because through this initiative, she's feeding more than 200,000 students in Nairobi, and she continues to upscale it. My call to action is, let us be the change that we want to see. We cannot just sit here and all expect something to be done. Sometimes in your small way, you can really help to see this. And as we even talk about this, the importance of homegrown school feeding cannot even be further emphasized. If we are able to even adapt, we are asking about where the money is coming from. If we have homegrown school feeding programs in our country, so that the small-scale farmers are even able to benefit as they supply food to schools, then we can even really grow the economy. You know, we won't even be asking so much about where the food is coming from, because we can be able to generate food on our own. And that is really, really my call to action. Let us reprioritize budgets. As the president said, when we invest $1, we get 9 back. So we see that when we talk about investing in food for education, this is not just a talk. You see, this goes and brings about a multiplier effect. And that is why I really urge all of us, And as we provide food for these young students, we're not just providing food. You know what is normal in Kenya? We see it even in schools that are back home in the countryside. It's just a case of maybe maize and beans, and we think we are done, and now we have fed students. No, we need to provide nutritious food to even build their cognitive abilities. If we do this, I believe we are able to educate an African fit for the 21st century, and homegrown school feeding can serve as a game changer to advance Africa's development and to realize Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. For us to be able to have this Africa we want, let us invest in school feeding, let us invest in our young students. I end saying this, that I raise my hand for education because that is our collective action with GPE. And I would like all of us to join in and just help me. Everyone do this. Say, I raise my hand for education. I raise my hand for school feeding programs. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Please remain on stage, Valentine. Thank you so much. Isn't that inspiring? It takes us right back to why it's the heart of the matter. And just like that, the lights are like, everything's been said, Janet. I just wanted to thank you all so much, and I wanted everyone to remain on stage because we will be requesting for a photo op with our speakers before we invite everyone. Thank you. I was really crossing my fingers that would happen. So thank you, Valentine. Thank you to our panelists, our esteemed speakers as well. Thank you all for being in the room today and for being a part of the change that we want to see. We've all been asked to raise our hands, so let's raise our hand every day from now on. And not quite literally, but we can raise our hands in our hearts. I'm Janet Bogwa. It's been an absolute pleasure moderating this session today. Have a fantastic week ahead. Thank you so much, everyone. So I will now please, as the rest of you leave, I'd like to ask our esteemed speakers and high-level speakers, Your Excellency Jakaya Kikwete, Dr. Belio Kipsang, and everyone to just come on stage so that there's a photo op. And we'll just ask the media to get ready for that. And after the speakers, believe it will be important to be joined by the larger GPE team. Big smiles. I think we can do one when we raise our hands. The room can also offer motivation and raise your hand. You don't have to be on camera. You can just raise your hand where you are. I think that's okay. Right. Thank you all so much. Have a fantastic day ahead. Thank you.